The news spread like wildfire, igniting conversations, theories, and heartbreak across the internet. What began as a small, whispered rumor quickly transformed into a storm that shook the Harris family to its very core. Hospitals, normally safe havens of healing and recovery, became arenas where fear, uncertainty, and tragedy loomed in the air. Fans from every corner of the world are asking the same question, their messages and posts unified in concern. Is this truly the end for King Harris? The atmosphere outside the hospital feels almost surreal as millions of strangers try to piece together a story that has become both intimate and public, personal yet shared by an entire generation of followers. The story of King Harris isn't just about a celebrity's life in peril, it's about fame, pressure, and the fragility of a life lived under a relentless spotlight. Inside the hospital, the environment is tense, heavy, almost suffocating. Lights flicker intermittently, casting fleeting shadows on the faces of the medical staff, who move with a quiet urgency that speaks volumes about the situation at hand. Nurses rush from room to room, carrying charts and equipment, their footsteps echoing in hallways that have never felt so long or so empty. The family sits in silence, a group bound together by love but fractured by fear. Phones ring repeatedly, each unanswered call only adding to the collective anxiety. Doctors prepared to deliver news that no one wants to hear, while seconds stretch into minutes and minutes into hours, each one carrying the unbearable weight of uncertainty. Outside these walls, however, millions of strangers watch, speculate, and react as if they too are part of the unfolding drama. The digital world has become a secondary ICU, one where commentary and theories flood timelines alongside prayers and mourning. King Harris wasn't simply another celebrity child navigating the world under the public eye. From the very beginning, his name carried the weight of a crown, a symbol of expectation, power, and scrutiny. But with that crown came pressure that few could comprehend, demands that no teenager should have to bear, and an endless spotlight that illuminated every flaw, every misstep, every human moment that normally goes unnoticed. He lived a life in which every minor mistake became a headline, and every public outburst sparked a frenzy of commentary, judgment, and debate. His Instagram posts, often raw and unfiltered, his late-night altercations, and statements that courted controversy painted him as reckless to some observers. Yet to those who knew him, King was simply a young man struggling to define his identity in a world that demanded perfection and fed on spectacle. When news first broke months ago that King's health might be declining, the reactions were mixed. Fans dismissed the reports as gossip, while critics framed it as another ploy to remain relevant in the social media age. King himself, knowingly or not, added fuel to the fire, posting cryptic messages online and publicly mocking those who doubted him. In one tweet, he wrote, "You all want me gone so bad, huh? Careful what you wish for." At the time, the words seemed like a typical celebrity quip, a defiant joke meant to provoke. Today, they echo with a haunting resonance, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the unintended prescience of his message. Insiders now reveal that King had been shuttled in and out of hospitals for weeks before the current crisis. What many assumed were routine checkups were, in fact, medical emergencies kept discreet to protect the family's carefully curated image. Nurses reportedly observed collapses, severe exhaustion, and medical interventions that were never publicly disclosed. For the Harris family, the decision to shield King's condition from the world was not solely about privacy. It was about maintaining the brand, a powerful name that transcended the family itself and demanded perfection. But perfection comes at a cost, and behind the glimmering performances, expensive cars, and viral content, cracks had begun to form. Cracks that would soon become impossible to ignore. Reports surfaced of backstage meltdowns, moments where King admitted he could no longer continue, moments of raw human vulnerability that the public rarely witnessed. One eyewitness recalled him shouting, "I can't do this anymore," before breaking down in tears, a powerful indication of the immense pressure that had built up over years of scrutiny and expectation. Friends and family sensed that something was deeply wrong, yet whether out of denial or fear of public scandal, warning signs were left unheeded. And now, in the ICU, the reality of those ignored warnings has manifested into a life-threatening situation. Doctors whisper about stress-related organ damage, potential self-medication, and hazardous habits that pushed his young body to its limits. Some point to the unrelenting pressure of fame as the root cause. Others highlight the environment in which he was raised. Meanwhile, social media, ever vigilant and unforgiving, delivers its own judgment in real time, as fans and critics alike weigh in with comments, hashtags, and viral posts.
The response online has been overwhelming. Fans flood platforms with hashtags like Pray for King and Final Goodbye, sharing old performance clips, fan art, and emotional tributes. One particularly viral video features a young girl clutching King's photograph, tears streaming down her face as she whispers, "Don't leave us." This clip alone has been shared millions of times, a stark testament to the profound emotional connection King's story has forged across the globe. As the family prays at his bedside, the public watches, mourns, and speculates, turning the outside world into a storm of commentary, conspiracy, and speculation. Leaked reports hint at layers of complexity beyond King's declining health. Some documents suggest connections to unregulated substances and shady suppliers in Atlanta, networks linked to illegal financial activity, and underground dealings. If these claims are verified, they paint a far darker picture of King's lifestyle than the public ever imagined, one that transcends youthful mistakes and enters the realm of serious danger. Anonymous sources allege that the Harris family knew more than they publicly disclosed, choosing to protect the family brand rather than address the underlying issues. Should investigators confirm these claims, the consequences will extend beyond heartbreak, potentially triggering lawsuits, federal probes, and allegations of negligence that could overshadow any personal grief. At present, the family is visibly shaken. T.I. reportedly refuses to leave the hospital, while Tiny has been seen weeping uncontrollably. Siblings share cryptic messages online, asking for prayers while revealing no details. The family's grief is compounded by the constant scrutiny of millions, a relentless combination of private pain and public judgment. Then there's the matter of betrayal. Rumors have surfaced claiming King recorded a private message the night before his collapse, speaking of feeling set up and betrayed. If such a recording exists and becomes public, the narrative could shift from tragedy to conspiracy. Was King about to expose corruption within the industry? Was he ready to break free from family control and reveal truths that could shake an empire? Online, hashtags like Who Killed King and #HarrisExposed trend relentlessly as fans comb through every post, video, and clip for hidden clues. Inside the hospital, the atmosphere is described as chaotic. Doctors focus on life-saving procedures, but the family is overwhelmed by grief, arguing, pointing fingers, and crying. Emotions run high, mixing guilt, sorrow, and fear in ways that are impossible to separate. Meanwhile, whispers of a so-called final report begin circulating online, raising questions about the extent of what was ignored and who may have been involved in any potential cover-ups. According to leaks, the report allegedly includes every ignored medical warning, every questionable financial movement, and even hints of manipulation from those closest to King. If made public, the fallout could be devastating. The Harris brand, cultivated over decades, could collapse overnight. Fans would see not just a family in mourning, but a dynasty accused of prioritizing wealth and reputation over a child's life. Lawyers are reportedly preparing defenses, anticipating the seismic effects such a leak could trigger. The response from the public has been fierce. Candlelight vigils have sprung up outside the hospital, chants of "No more silence, we want justice," echoing through the night. Online petitions have gained millions of signatures. Supporters demand accountability, transparency, and answers that so far remain elusive. Behind closed doors, insiders whisper about chaos within the family, resurfacing old grudges, leaking private arguments, and hinting at secret payouts. Social media has magnified the drama to unprecedented levels. Memes comparing the Harris family to reality show dynasties flood platforms like Instagram and TikTok. Late-night hosts dissect every angle, combining comedy, outrage, and analysis into content consumed by millions. Clips of King's energetic performances play alongside hospital footage, creating a haunting visual of talent silenced amidst turmoil. Reports suggest that multi-agency probes may be imminent, with sources indicating the FBI, IRS, and state regulators possibly investigating. If financial irregularities intersect with alleged medical negligence, this case could redefine how celebrity accountability is handled in America, setting new precedents and altering public expectations for transparency. The tipping point came when a former associate claimed King's collapse could have been prevented had earlier warnings been taken seriously. This revelation poured gasoline on an already raging fire, fueling public fury and heightening the risk of lawsuits targeting multiple parties. The Harris family's PR team is now working tirelessly, attempting to contain a story that seems beyond containment. Every statement is scrutinized, every interview criticized, every silence judged. What began as a medical emergency has become a multifaceted scandal encompassing health, money, and power.
The Harris dynasty now stands at a crossroads. One path offers transparency and accountability. The other risks denial, legal chaos, and a permanently tarnished legacy. King Harris's final days have already left a mark, changing everything for the family, the fans, and an entire industry watching closely. This story isn't just about a young man fighting for survival. It's about fame, family, power, and the unforgiving glare of a spotlight too bright for anyone to withstand unscathed. However, how did it all come to this? The once unstoppable star, the child born into privilege, surrounded by fame and adoration, is now reduced to whispers of silence, medical jargon, and tearful looks from those who loved him most. Social media is in chaos. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, every platform is in meltdown mode. Fans are praying for a miracle. Haters are celebrating a downfall. Insiders are leaking information that paints a far darker picture than anyone could have imagined. And it isn't just about health. It's about power, pressure, betrayal, and the consequences of living life in the unrelenting glare of fame. The silence inside the ICU is unnatural, the kind of silence that makes even the loudest rooms feel like mausoleums. Doctors whisper in tones that carry the weight of life and death. Nurses freeze mid-step. And at the very center of it all lies King Harris, the controversial prince of the Harris dynasty, motionless as his family clings to every faint breath he manages to take. This wasn't merely a medical emergency. It was the culmination of a storm that had been building for months, perhaps years, fueled by fame, expectation, and the relentless machinery of celebrity life. King Harris wasn't just any celebrity kid. He was the one who constantly pushed boundaries, who lived out loud, and whose every move made headlines. Scandals followed him like shadows. Leaked videos, late-night altercations, and jaw-dropping Instagram lives where he openly called out haters, industry giants, and sometimes even members of his own family. This was the King Harris who transformed his name into both a crown and a curse. So when the words "final report" started echoing through hospital corridors, it wasn't just about life or death. It was about legacy. What happens to the myth of King Harris if this truly is the end? How do you preserve the image of a young man who seemed unstoppable when even whispers of decline now dominate headlines? This is the question fans and critics alike are asking, as the narrative of his life teeters on the edge of tragedy. To understand the weight of this moment, we need to rewind. The tragedy didn't begin in that ICU bed. It started months ago when rumors of his declining health first surfaced online. At the time, nobody took it seriously. Fans dismissed the rumors as exaggeration. Critics mocked him, calling it attention-seeking drama. And King himself responded in characteristic fashion, posting cryptic messages on social media that left fans and followers puzzled. "Y'all want me gone so bad, huh? Be careful what you wish for." At the time, it seemed like bravado, sarcasm, or just another headline-grabbing tweet. But as the weeks went by, those words began to feel ominous. Wishes, as they say, have a way of turning into nightmares. And for King Harris, the nightmare was closer than anyone realized.
Insiders now claim that the Harris family had been hiding the full extent of his condition for weeks. Anonymous nurses and staff leaked information suggesting that King's hospital visits were far more serious than publicly disclosed. What was portrayed as routine checkups were in reality emergency interventions. He had been collapsing more often than anyone knew, and the family allegedly kept it quiet to protect the Harris brand. This wasn't about the boy. It was about maintaining the image, the empire, the perception of untouchable royalty. And that's where the scandal begins. King Harris wasn't just living under the glare of fame, he was living inside a machine that demanded perfection, power, and performance. And when he couldn't keep up, the cracks became impossible to ignore. Take, for example, a public meltdown during a performance last year. On stage, fans saw him storm off mid-song. Headlines labeled him ungrateful. Social media mocked him mercilessly. But backstage, away from the public eye, sources claim he broke down completely, screaming in frustration, "I can't do this anymore," before collapsing in tears. Now, that private collapse has manifested in the hospital, with ICU monitors beeping for his very survival.
And it only gets darker. Doctors are reportedly concerned not only about his health, but about what caused the decline. Stress-induced organ failure, dangerous self-medication, unregulated substances that fueled his highs but destroyed his body. Each piece of information paints a grim picture. Fans on social media are divided. Some post heartfelt prayers under trending hashtags like Pray for King and Final Goodbye, while others, less sympathetic, claim King lived wild, now he's paying the price. Viral posts circulate rapidly. One shows a young girl crying as she holds a photo of King. Another features fans replaying old concerts in tribute. Meanwhile, the Harris family gathers at his bedside, and the vultures of the internet, tabloids, bloggers, content creators, circle hungrily, eager for the last images, the final report, the ultimate goodbye. And what's inside that report? That's the million-dollar question. Some claim it contains a do not resuscitate order. Others insist it provides a medical timeline. Doctors are allegedly preparing to tell the family that King's condition is irreversible. Imagine hearing that about your child, your sibling, your own flesh and blood, the person who carried a dynasty's legacy into a new era, even through chaos. The pressure King Harris lived under extended far beyond health concerns. His life, as sources suggest, had become a nexus of indulgence, excess, and secrecy. Leaked documents and insider claims suggest that his lifestyle wasn't merely funded by his father, the well-known rap mogul T.I., but may have included private sponsors tied to underground rings in Atlanta, groups allegedly involved in illegal substances, money laundering, and funding celebrity excesses out of public sight. Imagine a 19-year-old living a rock star lifestyle, lavish cars, extravagant parties, jewelry drops bigger than some rap artists' annual income, all while the world assumed it was daddy's money supporting it. But if the rumors are accurate, some of it wasn't just about luxury. It was tied to influence, corruption, and potentially criminal activity. And yet, the pressures didn't stop at money or lifestyle. Warnings from medical professionals reportedly went unheeded. Handwritten notes, allegedly signed by specialists, warned that his habits could destroy him. The family, sources claim, pressed forward regardless, allowing the show to go on, all in service of a brand that seemed more important than the young man at the center of it all. The internet has already begun to interpret these events as more than a medical crisis. Hashtags like Who Killed King and Final Setup trend alongside fan theories, speculation about conspiracy, and wild claims about betrayal. One anonymous source even alleges the existence of a private recording in which King confesses that he feels betrayed and threatened, suggesting that his collapse might not have been purely accidental. If verified, such a recording would reframe the entire narrative, turning what seemed like a tragedy into a potential conspiracy.
Fans pore over every post, every Instagram story, every cryptic tweet, searching for clues in hindsight. One particularly haunting example, a video King posted shortly before the collapse, captioned, "Y'all think you know me, you don't." Now those words seem chilling, even prophetic, echoing across social media feeds in ways that leave fans both heartbroken and fearful. Meanwhile, inside the hospital, sources describe chaos. "It's like a war room," one nurse whispered. Doctors continue their work, but family members are breaking down, arguing, pointing fingers, drowning in grief and guilt. The stakes are no longer purely emotional. If investigators begin to examine the Harris accounts, King's contracts, and the alleged private suppliers, the consequences could extend far beyond heartbreak. Tax fraud, illegal business dealings, potential criminal charges. The story could end careers and destroy reputations. The final report, which insiders claim includes a detailed timeline of King's deterioration and ignored warnings, is rumored to document every misstep, every questionable financial transaction, and even manipulation of King's lifestyle by those closest to him. Once it reaches the public, there will be no spinning the story. The narrative of untouchable celebrity, of a family living above reproach, could collapse entirely. Lawyers reportedly representing anonymous sources have hinted at lawsuits and federal probes already in motion. Fans are divided like never before. Some angrily claim the family allowed him to die for the sake of the brand. Others defend the Harris family, arguing they are already suffering unimaginable pain. Regardless, the damage is done. The myth of King Harris as a fearless, untouchable young star is cracking under the weight of leaked information, insider claims, and social media fury. If even a fraction of the allegations prove true, the Harris dynasty could be facing a storm far beyond grief, one of legal scrutiny, financial investigation, and public outrage. And yet, this story may not be over. Some insiders whisper of even darker truths yet to emerge. Money laundering, hidden sponsorships, secret tapes, and potential betrayal within the family. All possibilities that could transform this personal tragedy into one of the biggest scandals the entertainment world has ever seen. The intersection of fame, power, and secrecy has rarely been so starkly exposed. If King Harris's condition is linked to these deeper forces, his final chapter may not simply end in tragedy. It could end with a revelation that shakes the foundations of the dynasty, the industry, and the public's perception of celebrity culture. The final report, insiders claim, isn't just medical documentation. It's a forensic map of what went wrong day by day, choice by choice, and warning by warning. Each line of that report, each chart, each signature could tell a story of neglect, excess, and exploitation. The internet is already ablaze with leaked screenshots, encrypted chatter, and viral speculation. Comments flood in, painting the Harris family as both victims and perpetrators. They let him dive for money. Harris dynasty is dirty. This isn't grief, it's greed, reads one viral post. Legal experts and fans alike are trying to anticipate the fallout. Will this story end as tragedy, scandal, or something much worse? However, King Harris had been untouchable, a young man born into power and expectation. He was the heir to a hip-hop empire, the son of industry royalty, a prince of controversy whose name was synonymous with both brilliance and chaos. Headlines chronicled his every misstep, every flamboyant outburst, every scandalous tweet. His antics broke the internet. His defiance of expectations made him both beloved and despised in equal measure. But now, stripped of the lights, cameras, and applause, stripped of the bravado and the bravura that had defined his public persona, he was simply a boy, fragile, vulnerable, and gasping for air in a hospital room. The contrast could not have been so stark. Outside the ICU doors, his family was unraveling. T.I., typically the picture of unshakable composure, paced the hallways like a man running from time itself, as though if he could move fast enough, he could outrun the inevitable. Tiny sat silently on a bench, her hands trembling as she scrolled through messages of support, speculation, and concern that poured in from fans around the world. Siblings huddled in corners, some praying, some crying, all grasping for the fragile hope that the next update might bring relief, some sign that their beloved brother and son might pull through. There was a heaviness to the air, a suffocating tension that seemed almost physical, pressing down on everyone present. King had not always been so fragile. He had been a firebrand, a storm contained in human form, refusing to live in anyone's shadow. From viral rants on Instagram Live to explosive confrontations captured on camera, King had built a reputation as a force too wild to control, a whirlwind whose every scandal only seems to make him more magnetic. Fans were addicted to the chaos. Critics were infuriated, and every misstep fueled the legend of a young man unwilling to be tamed. But beneath the glitz, the flashing cameras, and the online applause, something darker was brewing, something no headline could capture. Months before the collapse that brought him here, whispers of health concerns had surfaced. They were dismissed, either as rumors or the exaggerated claims of clout chasers seeking attention. Fans laughed them off, critics mocked them, and King himself, ever the provocateur, fanned the flames with cryptic posts. "Y'all want me gone so bad, huh? Careful what you wish for." At the time, it seemed like typical King bravado. Now, those words echoed like an ominous prophecy. According to insiders, the Harris family had known more than they let on. King's hospital visits were not isolated incidents. They were part of a growing pattern of collapses, fatigue, and episodes that left even his closest friends deeply concerned. Yet the family, determined to protect the brand, kept everything under wraps. The image of strength mattered more than the reality of fragility. Every misstep, every whisper of weakness was spun into a narrative of invincibility, masking a truth behind the curtain of celebrity. The cracks had already begun to show long before this final hospital scene. The pressure of stardom is relentless. Endorsements, performances, public appearances, business deals, the demands never cease. And King, barely out of his teens, bore the weight of an empire built long before he could understand its cost. Every meltdown was dismissed as immaturity. Every breakdown spun as drama. But the truth was far more devastating. King was crumbling under the expectations that came with his name. The weight of a legacy he did not choose, the ceaseless demands of an industry that thrives on youth and energy, and the impossible standards set by both family and fans left him fragile, overwhelmed, and unseen.
The breaking point came during a high-profile performance, the kind of event that defines careers. Midway through his set, King stopped singing. He stared out into the sea of lights and faces, fans chanting his name, cameras flashing, and then, without a word, he walked off stage. The crowd thought it was a stunt. The headlines called it unprofessional. But backstage, the reality was heartbreaking. King collapsed in tears, screaming, "I can't do this anymore." That night should have been a turning point, a moment to pause and reassess. But the machine of fame rolled on. The brand came first, and King's silent cries for help were lost in the roar of the audience. Now, the consequences of those ignored warnings loomed larger than ever. Machines beeped beside King's hospital bed, measuring the fragile rhythm of a body pushed to the brink. Leaks from the hospital hinted at stress-induced organ failure, while others suggested dangerous self-medication, a desperate attempt to keep up with a lifestyle that demanded more than his young body could endure. Pills, energy boosters, substances meant to fuel the highs, but quietly eroding him from within. The question that haunted everyone was both simple and impossible.
Did King Harris do this to himself, or did the industry, the very machine that celebrated his talent, do it to him? Social media exploded with speculation. Hashtags like Pray for King and hashtag Final Goodbye trended worldwide. Fans posted tear-soaked videos holding photos from concerts and meet and greets. Old clips of King laughing, performing, and living were shared millions of times, each replay a reminder of a life both brilliant and fleeting. Yet others were far less sympathetic. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes, one viral tweet read. King lived too fast. Now he's paying the price. Amidst the chaos, one fact remained. No one truly knew what was happening behind those ICU doors. Words like irreversible and non-responsive began to circulate, while other speculation about a final report, a document that could outline prognosis or even dictate life-sustaining measures, haunted every conversation. The young man born into hip-hop royalty was facing his most critical moment yet, and no one could predict the outcome. Outside, the world kept spinning, indifferent to the gravity within those walls. News outlets updated by the minute. Paparazzi camped in the parking lot. Fans held candles, silent vigils glowing in the night. The story of King Harris was no longer just a medical crisis. It had become a reckoning for a family who built an empire on power and perfection, for an industry that glorified excess while ignoring warning signs, and for King himself, the young man who had once seemed untouchable, now confronting the most human battle of all, survival. As night dragged on and the whispers from doctors grew quieter, one phrase began to echo through the halls, one phrase no one was ready to hear. Final report. Was this truly the end, or could there still be a chance that King Harris's story was not finished yet? Inside, the tension was unbearable. T.I. emerged from a closed-door meeting with doctors, his stoic expression streaked with tears. Tiny refused to speak to the media, choosing instead to remain by her son's side around the clock. Siblings, many of whom had grown up in the same unforgiving spotlight, shared cryptic messages online. Pray for us. Only God knows the truth. Behind the veil of silence, troubling truths began to surface. Hospital staff claimed that King's toxicology report raised red flags. Rumors of performance-enhancing substances, prescription misuse, and dangerous self-medication allegedly used to maintain his energy, his image, and his career. Some suggested something darker. The entertainment industry itself had chewed him up and spat him out. One viral tweet captured the sentiment. They push kids to their breaking point and abandon them when they break. Candlelight vigils were joined by protesters holding signs, "Justice for King. The industry did this." Conspiracy theories spread. Was this neglect, a cover-up, or a deliberate attempt to silence a young man who knew too much? Fan pages once filled with birthday wishes, concert highlights, and lighthearted moments now resembled digital crime boards. Reddit threads dissect timelines, hidden meetings, and questionable decisions as strangers attempt to piece together the puzzle of King Harris's downfall. The so-called final report, leaked across the internet in fragments, detailed ignored medical warnings, suspicious financial transactions, and unexplainable supplier activity. Analysts suggest these revelations hint at negligence far beyond simple carelessness. Questions exploded instantly. Did the family protect their empire at the expense of King's health? Were outside players exploiting the situation for profit? Legal experts predict subpoenas, asset freezes, and resignations from brand partnerships. Every business associated with King, whether music rights, sponsorships, or collaborations, suddenly faces intense scrutiny. The stakes extend far beyond public embarrassment. Financial ruin looms as a very real threat. Fans reacted with fury and heartbreak, organizing protests, online campaigns, and vigils, demanding accountability. This isn't just a story of tragedy, it's a cautionary tale of the cost of fame, the fragility of human life, and the complex web of family, power, and public scrutiny. The Harris family faces a defining moment, one that could determine their legacy for decades. And for King Harris, the echoes of his life and struggles resonate far beyond the hospital walls, leaving a story that will not end quietly, but will continue to haunt, inspire, and provoke questions about the true cost of living under the brightest of spotlights.